She was my best friend for 12 years. At my engagement party, she stood up and said she was in love with my fiancé. She was my maid of honor. She had known me longer than anyone. She had held my hand through every hard thing I had ever been through. And on the night that was supposed to be the happiest of my life, she stood up in front of everyone I loved and destroyed it all. My name is Layla, and this is the story of the night I lost my best friend, my fiancé, and the life I thought I was building, and how losing all of it at once was the only way I was ever going to find out who I actually was. Part 1. Sarah. I need to tell you about Sarah before I tell you about anything else, because without understanding who Sarah was to me, none of what happened makes any sense. We met when we were 9 years old, 3rd grade. She had moved to our town from somewhere else, and she showed up on the first day of school with paint on her shoes and a backpack that was slightly too big for her, and an expression on her face that I recognized immediately because I had worn it myself on hard days. The expression that says, "I am fine, but please be kind to me." I sat next to her at lunch. I do not remember deciding to. I just did. We were inseparable from that day forward. Sarah was the person who talked me through my parents' divorce when I was 13. I was the person who sat on the floor of her bathroom with her at 16 when she thought her life was over because of a boy whose name neither of us can remember now. She was in the front row when I graduated college. I drove 4 hours in the middle of the night when her mother had a health scare, and she called me crying from a hospital waiting room. 12 years of that. 12 years of being each other's first call, first choice, first safe place. When people asked us what it was like to have a friendship that close, we always said the same thing. She is not my friend. She is my family. I believed that with everything I had. Part 2. Alex. I met Alex at a dinner party that Sarah hosted at her apartment in the spring, about 3 years ago. He was a friend of her colleague, tall and quiet in the way that reads as thoughtful rather than distant, with the kind of laugh that arrives slowly and then takes over the whole room. Sarah introduced us. She brought him over to where I was standing by the window and said, "Layla, this is Alex. Alex, Layla is my favorite person in the world. Be nice to her." He looked at me and smiled. "That's a high standard," he said. "I'll try to be worthy of it," I said. Sarah laughed and moved away to talk to someone else. Alex and I talked for the rest of the evening. He asked me out 3 days later. I called Sarah before I said yes, the way I called her before every significant decision in my life, and she said, "Layla, obviously, say yes immediately." So I did. Alex was patient and steady and kind in the way that some people simply are, not as a performance but as a fundamental quality of their character. He remembered small things. He showed up consistently. He loved me in a way that felt safe and real and entirely without complication. After 2 years together, he proposed on a Sunday morning in our kitchen. No grand gesture, just him on one knee with his grandmother's ring and his whole heart completely visible on his face. I said yes before he finished the sentence. Sarah cried when I told her. "Happy tears," she said. "The best kind." I believed her, because why would I not believe her? She was Sarah. Part 3. The engagement party. The engagement party was Sarah's idea. She insisted on planning it herself. The venue, the decorations, the guest list, every detail. I had offered to help a dozen times, and she had waved me off every time. "Let me do this for you," she said. "It's the least I can do." The evening was beautiful. A rooftop venue with fairy lights and flowers, and all the people I loved most in one place. Alex stood beside me the whole night with his hand at the small of my back, and I remember thinking, somewhere in the middle of it, that I could not imagine being happier than I was in that exact moment. We were an hour into the party when Sarah picked up a glass and tapped it with a spoon. The room quieted. Everyone turned to look at her. She was wearing a red dress, and her hair was down, and she was smiling the way she always smiled. Bright, and warm and completely genuine. Or what I had always believed was completely genuine. "I want to say something," she said. Her voice was steady, almost too steady. "Sarah," I said, smiling. I assumed she was about to give a toast. I was already preparing to cry. "I love you, Layla," she said. "I want you to know that. Whatever happens, I need you to know that." Something shifted in my chest, a small wrong note. "I also need to say something that I should have said a long time ago." She turned and looked directly at Alex. "I'm in love with you. I have been for years, and I can't stand here and watch you marry someone else without saying it out loud, at least once." The room went completely silent. Not the comfortable silence of a moment between speeches, the specific, suffocating silence of an entire room full of people who have just witnessed something they cannot process. I turned to look at Alex. And Alex, my Alex, steady and patient and kind, was not looking at me. He was looking at Sarah, and on his face was an expression I had never seen there before. Something complicated and old and unresolved. He did not deny it. Part 4. The night after, I do not remember all of the next few hours in sequence. Memory does not work that way when the ground falls out from under you. What I remember are moments, fragments. My mother's hand on my arm, the sound of people talking in low voices around me. Someone leading me to a chair, a glass of water I did not drink. I remember Alex coming to find me in a side room where I had gone to be away from the eyes of everyone. He sat across from me, and he looked like a man who had been carrying something very heavy for a very long time and had just put it down in the worst possible way. "Tell me everything," I said. My voice was calm. I was surprised by how calm it was. "Layla, everything," I said, "right now." He told me, not all of it that night. Some of it came later, over days and weeks of difficult conversations, but enough. He and Sarah had met before the dinner party where he and I were introduced. They had dated briefly, 3 or 4 months, something that had ended quietly and without resolution. When Sarah had introduced us, she had told him that she was completely over it, that she thought we would be perfect together, that she wanted us both to be happy. He had believed her. He had fallen in love with me genuinely and completely, and had told himself that whatever he had felt for Sarah was finished. But it had not been finished, not entirely. And Sarah had known that. She had known that all along. "Did you ever—" I started. "No," he said immediately. "Never, not once, I swear to you." I believed him, and somehow that made it both better and worse at the same time. I asked him to leave. He left. I sat in that room alone for a long time. Then I called Sarah. She picked up on the first ring. "Layla," she said. Her voice was quiet. "Why?" I said. A long silence. "I don't know," she said. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I did it like that." "But you did it," I said. "You planned that. You chose that moment on purpose." She didn't answer, and her silence was the most honest thing she had said all evening. "Don't call me," I said. "Not yet." I hung up. I sat in the dark, and I started, slowly and painfully, to think back through 12 years of friendship and look at every moment I thought I understood with completely new eyes. Part 5. What I started to remember. Grief and betrayal do a strange thing to memory. They act like a light switched on in a room you thought you knew perfectly, and suddenly you can see things that were always there, but invisible in the dark. I spent the week after the engagement party going through 12 years of friendship in my head. Not obsessively, not in a way that felt like madness, but carefully, methodically, the way you go through a house after a flood, room by room, checking what survived and what did not. And things started to surface, small things first. The way Sarah had always changed the subject slightly whenever Alex's name came up in the early months of our relationship. I had read it as discomfort about my happiness, the complicated feeling a single friend can have when someone close to them falls in love. I had been careful not to talk about him too much. I had been considerate, then slightly larger things. A comment she had made about 8 months into my relationship with Alex, when we had our first real argument. "Are you sure he's right for you?" she had said. "I just want to make sure you're really happy." I had told her we were fine, that every couple argued, that I was absolutely sure. She had nodded and moved on. I had thought she was being protective, a good friend asking hard questions because she cared. Now I heard it differently. Then the largest thing, the thing I had filed away at the time as strange and then forgotten entirely. About a year before the engagement, I had found a message on Alex's phone. Not by snooping. His phone had been on the table, and a message had come in while he was in the shower, and I had glanced at the screen without thinking. It was from Sarah. Just 4 words. "Are you still sure?" I had asked him about it later, casually. He had said she was asking about a restaurant reservation he had been helping her make. I had accepted that completely. I had not thought about it again until now. "Are you still sure?" I sat with those 4 words for a very long time. Part 6. The conversation with my mother. My mother came to my apartment 4 days after the engagement party. She let herself in with her key, made tea without asking, and sat across from me at the kitchen table with the specific expression she had worn my entire life when she was about to say something I needed to hear but might not want to. "I need to tell you something," she said. "Okay," I said. "I never told you this because I didn't want to interfere, and because I thought I might be wrong, and because you loved her and I didn't want to be the person who put doubt in your mind about someone you loved." "Mom," I said, "just say it." She wrapped both hands around her mug. "I always felt something was off with Sarah," she said. "Not in a way I could point to, just a feeling. The way she looked at you sometimes, not with love exactly, with something else, something that wanted what you had." I looked at her. "There was a moment at your college graduation," she said. "You had gone to take photos with your friends, and Sarah was standing next to me watching you, and she had this expression, just for a second, when she thought nobody was looking, that I have never been able to forget." "What kind of expression?" I asked. My mother looked out the window for a moment. "Like she was watching something that should have been hers," she said quietly. I did not speak for a long time after that. Part 7. Sarah's message. 10 days after the engagement party, Sarah sent me a message. Long, carefully written. The kind of message that takes hours to compose. I read it 3 times. She said she was sorry. She said she had never meant to hurt me. She said the feelings had built up over years, and the engagement had made them impossible to contain, and she had made a terrible decision about how to handle them, and she would regret it for the rest of her life. She said she loved me, that I was her family, that she would do anything to fix what she had broken. And then, near the end, something that stopped me completely. "I know this doesn't make it better," she wrote, "but I need you to know that I introduced you to Alex because I thought you two would be good together. I wanted you to be happy. That part was real." I read that line 4 times. I introduced you to Alex. She had introduced us. She had chosen to bring us together. She had placed us in the same room and pointed us at each other and watched it happen. A woman who was in love with him, who had dated him before me, who had, according to everything I was now understanding, never fully let go. Why would she do that? I sat with that question for 3 days, turning it over, looking at it from every angle. And then, slowly, an answer began to form. One I did not want. One that made everything worse and everything clearer at the same time. Part 8. The Theory. I called my friend Priya, who had known both me and Sarah since university, and who had the kind of mind that cuts directly to the center of things. I told her everything, start to finish. She listened without interrupting, which was unusual for her. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "Can I say something that might be hard to hear?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "What if she introduced you to Alex on purpose?" Priya said. "Not because she wanted you to be happy, but because she wanted to test him." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "She was in love with him," Priya said. "She had dated him and it had ended. Maybe she needed to know, really know, whether he would choose her over someone else, even someone he loved, even his fiancé." I went very still. "She set up a situation," Priya continued quietly, "where she could find out the answer. She introduced you. She watched him fall in love with you. She let it go all the way to an engagement. And then she chose the most public, most final possible moment to make her move and see what he would do." The room was very quiet. "That's not a mistake," I said slowly. "That's a plan." "Yes," Priya said. "I think it is." Part 9. The truth about Alex. I went to see Alex a week later. We met at a coffee shop, neutral and quiet. He looked like someone who had not slept properly in days, which was accurate. I told him what Priya and I had worked out, the theory, the timeline, all of it. He listened with his hands flat on the table and his eyes very steady. When I finished, he did not say anything for a long moment. "There's something I haven't told you," he said. I waited. "Sarah called me," he said. 2 days after the party, I didn't pick up, but she left a voicemail." "What did she say?" He took his phone out and played it for me. Sarah's voice, quiet and slightly unsteady. "Alex, I know I have no right to ask you anything, but I need to know if there's any part of you that feels what I feel. Because if there is, if there's even a small part, I think we owe it to ourselves to find out. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for how I did this, but I'm not sorry for saying it." The message ended. I looked at Alex. "What did you feel?" I asked. "When you heard that, what did you actually feel?" He looked at me for a long time, and I knew him well enough, had loved him long enough and carefully enough to know that whatever he said next was going to be the truth. "Confused," he said. "I felt confused, which is not the same as nothing, and I think you deserve to know that." I nodded slowly. "Do you love me?" I asked. "Yes," he said, immediately, completely. "But," I said. He looked down at the table. "But I think there is something unfinished between me and Sarah that I never properly dealt with. And I think you have always deserved someone for whom there is nothing unfinished, someone who is completely, entirely yours." I felt something crack open in my chest, not with pain exactly, more like a door finally opening after being stuck for a very long time. "I think so too," I said. We sat there for a while, two people who had loved each other genuinely and well, arriving together at the end of something. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know," I said. "Me too." Part 10. What I found out next. 3 weeks after the engagement party, I got a phone call from a woman I had met twice at Sarah's work events. Her name was Claire, and she apologized for contacting me before explaining how she had gotten my number. "I need to tell you something about Sarah," she said. "Something I probably should have told you a long time ago." She told me that Sarah and Alex had not dated briefly before the dinner party where he and I were introduced. They had been together for almost a year, a serious, committed relationship that Sarah had ended suddenly and without much explanation, leaving Alex confused and genuinely hurt. "She talked about him constantly after they broke up," Claire said, "for months, and then one day she just stopped, and a few weeks later she was telling everyone about this amazing new couple she had introduced." I closed my eyes. "She ended it," I said. "She ended a year-long relationship with him and then introduced him to me." "Yes," Claire said. "Why did she end it?" I asked. Claire hesitated. She said he wasn't ambitious enough, that he was too comfortable, that she needed someone who pushed her more. A man who was patient and steady and kind, who remembered small things, who showed up consistently, who loved people in a way that felt safe and real and without complication. She had ended it because she thought she could do better. And then she had watched him fall in love with someone else. And she had spent 2 years finding out that she had been wrong. I sat with that information for a very long time. Part 11. The Last Conversation with Sarah. I agreed to meet Sarah 6 weeks after the engagement party. A park near our old university, a place we had spent hundreds of hours together over the years. I chose it on purpose. I wanted to have this conversation somewhere that held the real history of us, not just the recent wreckage. She was already there when I arrived, sitting on a bench with her hands in her lap, looking smaller than I had ever seen her. She stood up when she saw me, and I could see the relief on her face just at my presence, just at the fact that I had come. We sat down. I told her everything I knew, Claire's phone call, the year-long relationship, the timeline, all of it. She did not deny any of it. She looked at her hands and she told me the truth, finally and completely, without managing it or shaping it, or making it easier for herself. She had loved him. She had ended it because she was afraid of how much she loved him, afraid of being that vulnerable, afraid of choosing someone steady and quiet when she had always told herself she wanted something more exciting. She had regretted it almost immediately. And then she had introduced him to me. Why? I asked. If you still had feelings for him, why introduce us? She looked up at me. Her eyes were wet. Because I told myself I was over it, she said. I genuinely believed that. I thought I was doing something good. I thought introducing my 2 favorite people was the right thing to do. And when you realized you weren't over it? I asked. She looked back down. I kept telling myself it would pass, that watching you 2 be happy would make it pass, that I would find someone else, and it would all become irrelevant. But it didn't pass. No, she said, it didn't. I looked at her for a long time. This person I had known since we were 9 years old. This person who had held my hand through every hard thing, who had also, I now understood, been carrying something enormous and unresolved for years, while standing next to me at every significant moment of my life. I don't think you're a bad person, I said finally. I think you made choices that were about your own pain and your own fear, and you didn't think clearly enough about what they would cost other people. I think that's different from being bad. She nodded. A tear ran down her face. But I can't be your friend right now, I said. I don't know if I can be your friend again, not because I hate you, but because I need to figure out who I am without you in the center of it. I think I've needed to do that for a long time. She nodded again. She didn't argue. She didn't try to change my mind. And somehow that, more than anything else, felt like the most honest moment we had ever shared. Part 12. The engagement that wasn't. Alex and I called off the engagement officially 2 months after the party. It was quiet and mutual and without drama. We had several more long, honest conversations in that time, and what emerged from them, gradually and clearly, was something I had not expected. We had been genuinely good for each other. We had loved each other well. But somewhere underneath the relationship, in a place neither of us had fully examined, there had been things unfinished. His history with Sarah, my tendency to build my life around other people rather than myself, small fault lines that the earthquake had simply made visible. We parted with kindness. He moved to a different part of the city. We do not see each other, but I do not think of him with pain. I think of him with something warm and clear and far away, the way you think about a place you loved that you know you will not return to. Part 13. Who I was without them. Here is the thing nobody tells you about losing 2 of the most central people in your life at the same time. It is devastating, and it is also, in a way that takes a long time to understand, a kind of freedom. I had built my adult life with Sarah at the center of it, and Alex beside her. My first call was Sarah. My safe place was Sarah. My understanding of who I was had been shaped, in ways I had never examined, by her reflection of me, by what she saw when she looked at me and what she told me she saw. When she was gone, I had to figure out who I was without that mirror. It was uncomfortable. It was slow. It was the most important thing I have ever done. I moved to a new apartment, smaller than the one Alex and I had been planning to share, in a neighborhood I had always liked but never lived in. I painted the walls a color Sarah would have hated. I bought furniture I chose entirely alone. I arranged everything exactly as I wanted it, and then I stood in the middle of it and felt, for the first time in years, like I was standing in my own life. I started therapy with a woman named Dr. Park, who had a directness I found immediately useful. She did not let me stay comfortable in the easy explanations. She kept asking the harder questions. "What did Sarah give you that you couldn't give yourself?" she asked in our third session. I opened my mouth. I closed it. I thought about it honestly. "Permission," I said eventually. She made me feel like my choices were valid, like I was making the right decisions, like I was enough. "And what does it mean," Dr. Park said carefully, "that you needed someone else to tell you that?" I sat with that question for the rest of the session, and for many days afterward. Part 14. Priya. Priya and I became closer in the months after everything fell apart. She had always been in my life, but slightly on the periphery. A friend I saw regularly but never quite let fully in, because Sarah had always occupied the space closest to the center. Without Sarah there, Priya moved naturally into that space, not as a replacement, as herself, as someone who had been waiting, patiently and without demand, for me to actually see her. She was different from Sarah in every important way. She did not need to be the center. She did not manage conversations toward outcomes. She said what she thought and asked what she wanted to know, and when she was wrong about something, she said so directly and without drama. One evening about 4 months after everything, we were at her apartment having dinner, and she said, out of nowhere, "Can I tell you something I've been thinking?" "Yes," I said. "I think Sarah loved you," she said. "I really do, but I also think she loved you the way someone loves something they're afraid of losing. Tight, controlling, not always in your best interest." I looked at her. "I think real love," Priya said, "is the kind that wants you to grow even when your growing means you need the other person less." I thought about that for a long time. "Did you ever feel like that with Sarah?" I asked. "Like she needed you to need her?" Priya was quiet for a moment. "I think Sarah chose friends who made her feel necessary," she said carefully. "And I think you were the most important one, the one she built the most around." I nodded slowly. Something settled in my chest. Not painfully, just quietly, like a question that had been floating, finally finding somewhere to land. Part 15. The letter. 8 months after the engagement party, Sarah wrote me a letter. An actual letter, handwritten, several pages. It arrived in the mail on a Tuesday morning, and I sat with it unopened on my kitchen table for 2 days before I read it. She wrote about our friendship from the beginning, specific memories, small ones, things I had forgotten and things I had not. The lunch table in 3rd grade, the bathroom floor at 16, the 4-hour drive in the middle of the night to the hospital waiting room. She wrote about Alex, all of it from her perspective, with an honesty that must have cost her something real. How she had ended it out of fear, how she had introduced us believing she was doing the right thing, how she had watched us fall in love and told herself it was fine until the day it simply was not fine anymore, and she had no idea what to do with that. She wrote about the engagement party. She said she did not plan it the way Priya and I had theorized. She said it had not been a calculated test. It had been a moment of complete loss of control, something she had been suppressing for 2 years, finally breaking through the surface in the worst possible way, at the worst possible moment. "I am not asking for anything," she wrote near the end. "Not forgiveness, not friendship, not another chance. I am just asking you to know the truth, all of it, because you deserve the truth. You always have." I read the letter twice, then I put it carefully in a drawer. I did not write back, not then, but I did not throw it away either. Part 16. what real looks like, and what I know now. It has been 14 months since the engagement party. My life is quieter than it used to be, smaller in some ways, larger in others. I have fewer people close to me, and I am more careful about who I let in and why. Not from fear, from understanding, from finally knowing the difference between people who love you and people who love what you represent to them. I am still in therapy with Dr. Park. We have done more work in 14 months than I did in the previous decade. I am learning to give myself the permission I used to need from Sarah. It is slow work. It is the most worthwhile work I have ever done. Priya is my closest friend now. We have dinner every week and talk too loudly and disagree about things, and she tells me the truth, even when it is inconvenient, and I do the same for her. It is the most uncomplicated close friendship I have ever had. I did not know friendship could feel like this. 3 months ago, I met someone. His name is Noah. He is a landscape architect who grows tomatoes on his balcony and takes things slowly and tells me exactly what he thinks without making it into a performance. We are not rushing anything. We are just two people who are genuinely interested in each other, learning things carefully and without pretense. On our 3rd date, he asked me, out of nowhere, "What do you want your life to look like in 5 years?" And I answered without hesitating. Not because I had rehearsed it, because I actually knew. That was new. That was everything. As for Sarah, I think about her, not with anger anymore, with something more complicated than that. Grief for what we were and what we could not stay. Understanding, slowly growing, of how two people can love each other genuinely and still bring out the worst in each other without meaning to. Sadness for the version of us that could have existed if we had both been more honest, more whole, more ourselves from the beginning. Maybe one day I will write back. I do not know yet. Some doors need to stay closed for a long time before you can open them again without getting hurt. And some doors stay closed forever, and that is not a failure. That is just the shape of certain stories. What I know now, what I want you to take from this if you take anything, is this. The people who are closest to you are not automatically the people who are best for you. Proximity is not the same as safety. History is not the same as health. Someone can love you and still hold you back. Someone can be your family and still be the thing standing between you and your actual life. Pay attention to how you feel when you are with the people closest to you, not just the big moments, the small ones. Do you feel more like yourself or less? Do you feel permission to grow or a quiet pressure to stay the same? Do you feel chosen or managed? You deserve to be chosen, fully, without conditions, without someone else's unfinished business in the room. My name is Layla. I lost my best friend and my fiancé on the same night, and I have never, in my entire life, felt more free. If this story meant something to you, leave a comment. Share it with someone who needs it. And if you are carrying something heavy right now, something you have been telling yourself is fine, when it is not quite fine, I hope this gives you a little permission to look at it clearly. You are stronger than whatever you are afraid to see, I promise.